the deal. This is the question. I'm not saying it's not justified. I'm just asking you. Where do you go mentally when there's a gap between expectation and behavior? Where do you naturally go? Where does your spouse naturally go? Where do you go? Now, here's what I want you to hear. People who stay in love learn to do this. People who stay in love learn to do this. People who stay in love, either intuitively or by force of habit or however they get there, learn and consistently, regardless of circumstances, they learn to go here. When you find people who are still crazy in love, you will not find couples where there's no gap. There will always be gaps. What you will find are couples who have both decided and learned and made it a habit of assuming, not the worst, but believing and assuming the best, which means they are, as we're going to see in a minute, generous in their explanation. They, in their mind, come up with an explanation as to why there's a gap, and they're generous in their explanation. Now, years ago, our leadership team read a book called The One Thing You Need to Know by Marcus Buckingham. The One Thing You Need to Know by Marcus Buckingham. And this book is actually a leadership management book. Our leadership team, we go through books all the time together, and this was one of the books we went through. It's not a marriage book. It's not a relationship book. It's a management business leadership book. But at the beginning of this book, he's making the point that he's going to make throughout the book, and the point of the book, The One Thing You Need to Know, is that in every discipline, in every field, in every realm of life, there's one principle, and if you know that one principle, you'll be successful. That's his theory. To support his theory, he gives an illustration for marriage, and here's his illustration. He said there was a group of researchers who wanted to study successful relationships. And so they got a group of people together that were considered happy, and they did lots and lots of interviews, and they found a group of people who were very, very happy in their relationship, happily married, who had been together for 10 years or more. And they decided to ask the question, what is the common denominator? What is the one thing? And they assumed, based on previous research, that they knew what the one thing was already. Based on previous research where they had studied a lot of unhappy couples and couples whose relationships eventually fell apart, they discovered that in an unhappy relationship, there was huge misunderstanding between the two parties as to what the other person was like. There was like complete disengagement or a complete disconnect. They didn't understand each other. So they assumed that when they studied these happy couples, they would discover a very deep understanding, a very realistic view, and that the man and the woman would understand each other's strengths and weaknesses. They wouldn't have high expectations because they knew each other so well. They would just say, well, she's not good at that, so I don't expect much. He's pretty good at that, so here's... They expected to find very realistic expectations based on the reality of these two people. What they discovered was the very opposite. When they tested these couples that had been together 10 years or longer who were considered happy couples, they discovered that in fact, they had a very unrealistic view of each other. They would give the man, for example, a test, and he would rate himself in certain areas. Then they would give his partner the same test, and she would rate him higher in every single category, higher than he rated himself, and vice versa. They rated each other higher consistently in all these couples over and over and over in every single category. Their conclusion from the test was that love really is a bit blind. That these happy couples did not have a realistic view of their partner. Here are some of their findings. I just want to read you three statements. This is so interesting. A spouse's positive illusion, they used the word illusion, that there was an illusion. The spouse's positive illusion created an upward spiral of love. Now, before you think this is weird, this is exactly what you did when you fell in love. I guarantee you. You thought he was the greatest person in the world. You saw no fault with him. In fact, when somebody would say, well, he's kind of you just covered that over and said, yeah, but. And somebody came to you and said, I'm not sure and you said, yeah, but you had this illusion that your love was blind, right? And here's what they say. A spouse's positive illusion created an upward spiral of love. The illusion created a conviction. They're really this way. The conviction led to security. Well, I can trust myself with this person because look how they are. Security fostered intimacy, and the intimacy fostered love. Here's something else they said. A husband and wife who assumes that his spouse possesses strengths that he or she doesn't think he or she possesses will have a strong marriage. That in a marriage where I assume my wife possesses strengths that she doesn't think she has, is evidence of a strong relationship. Here was their advice, okay? Here's their advice from their study. Find the most, and I love this word, find the most generous explanation. And this is the mental part. Find, come up with, be creative, think until you discover it. Find the most generous explanation for each other's behavior. Now get this, and then believe it. Find, come up with the most generous explanation for each other's behavior, and then believe it. Here's a couple examples they gave. She's not impatient, she's just intense. He's not insensitive, he's just focused. Now, here's what they're saying. They're saying, look, at some point in every relationship, there's a gap. Listen to me. No matter what your experience has been, every single time you choose what you put in this gap. You do. That's your decision. And it begins in your mind. Their research says happily married couples learn to discipline themselves. We don't know how they got there. Chose to be generous in their explanation. Oh, she's she's kind of, but it just doesn't, it's just not, I'm just going to assume the best. I'm going to come up with a generous explanation. Let me ask you something. Where do you go with this? Naturally. Do you quickly go negative? Or do you just assume the best? That's your decision. Now, I know you got a story. I'm not discounting that. I'm just asking you, where do you go with this? Now, with that in mind, listen to 1 Corinthians 7 again. This is so extraordinarily powerful. It's over 2,000 years old, and it may be the key for some of you who have grown so far apart and think it's hopeless and you'll never have the passion. You're against divorce, so you're going to gut it out, but it ain't fun, right? And you don't like it when the phone rings and it's her. And you don't like it when the garage door opens and it's him. And it's just kind of you're just going to, because the kids are there and you're whatever. But it's just become a cycle of negativity, because here's what happens. When both of you are here, it's a cycle that just feeds on itself and feeds on itself and feeds on itself. And the thing about this is you get to be right almost every time. See there? I told you. In fact, come on, let me dig a little bit. Some of you actually like it when your spouse screws up because it gives you another excuse to be right. See there? I told you he wouldn't come through. See there? He's already late. See, I told my sister he's going to be late. I told my brother-in-law, you know what? Your sister, she just cannot manage money. I just found another example. Here's another bill that went unpaid. Here's another. You get into this cycle and you start looking for it. You start celebrating it. You love to discover that they're wrong, and they love to discover that you're wrong. And you think you're winning arguments, and you may win arguments, and you may win points, but you are losing the most important relationship in your life. And it's your choice every single time as to what you put here. Now listen to this verse. 1 Corinthians 13:7 again. Love, always protects. What does it protect? Love protects the integrity of the relationship. I'm not looking for an opportunity to put something in the negative column. I'm trying to protect this relationship. I'm looking for a way to put something in the positive column. I am going to protect this relationship. I'm looking for a way to keep love alive. Always trust. It looks for a generous explanation. A generous, always trusts, believes all things. Always hopes. Always hopes. That is, hopefully there's a good explanation. Hopefully there's just something I don't know. Hopefully he didn't mean to. Hopefully I'm not going to give up hope until proven otherwise. Always perseveres. Always perseveres. Always looks for the good. How do you do on this? Where do you naturally go? Have you and your spouse gotten into a cycle? Maybe he's good at this and you're bad at it. Maybe he cuts you slack all the time and you think, well, of course he does. I'm just next to perfect. I mean, every once in a while. And then you say, well, nobody's perfect. And he's going, you're right. And he just kind of leans into you. But man, if he messes up, if he's late 5 minutes, if there's one unaccounted for $1, or he has to change his mind, or there's a change of plan, you're just like, well, there you go. And you just go negative. Or maybe, she's great and you're the one that goes negative. Where do you go with this? Now, here's what I want you to hear. When you choose to assume the worst, even if there's plenty of history to back it up, every time you choose to go negative, you have contributed to the demise of your relationship. You are a participant. You're a participant. You say, wait a minute, Andy, wait, let me, I know you got a story, but I just want you to hear this one part before we go to your story. Every time, even when it seems to be justified, even when there's a history, every time you go here mentally, that gets expressed in your attitude, that gets expressed in your tone, that gets expressed in your response, your text, your email, the fact that you're not there when she gets home, or you're not there when he gets home, or that, there's no dinner ready because he was late, so you put it all back in the refrigerator and you're watching TV and you're right. I mean, it goes both ways in every relationship. Every time you go here, you contribute to the demise of your love relationship. Even when it's justified, you become a participant. Now listen to me. Let me tell you something about your fiance or the person you love or your spouse. Listen. The last thing they want to do is disappoint you. I don't care how bad the relationship is. I don't care what the history is. The last thing they want to do is for you to feel disappointed in their behavior, their response, their performance. I don't care who you are. No one wants to disappoint the person they're in a relationship with. Now, let me tell you what happens. When you go negative, what it communicates is this: no matter what you do, no matter how hard you try, you will never measure up. You will never hit the standard. You will never get to where I expect you to be. And every time you overtly or covertly or subtly communicate that in your relationship, you push them further and further away, and they feel like they've disappointed you. And in your mind, you're going, well, look, if you want to quit disappointing me, all we need to do is get these two things together, and then I'll be fine. So come on, perform, jump higher, be more careful, get here earlier. Come on, boy. Here, boy, come on. If you don't want to feel like you're disappointing me, let's bring these two things together. That's not how you decrease disappointment in a relationship. One of the most powerful things you can do, and I don't even know that I can explain it fully. One of the most powerful things you can do when there's a gap to communicate that you haven't disappointed me is to fill the gap with believe the best. When you choose to believe the best, even when there's a pattern of a person not being everything you think they should be, when you choose to believe the best and when you choose to communicate that to them, here's what happens. It creates margin in the relationship. And a healthy person responds to that margin and begins to move in your direction. Let me tell you what, if you have consistently done this, they're afraid of you. If you've consistently done this, they dread the email and the response. And when he's running late or she's running late and he or she has a really good reason, they're scared to death of what you're going to do, and they put off making that phone call because they don't want to disappoint you. They don't want to be made to feel like they can't measure up. Nobody wants to feel that. So that's why when you do this by choice, even when there's a gap, you create margin. And what you communicate is this: I trust you. I trust you. I trust you. I trust you. Even before I hear your explanation, I trust you. Even before I hear the circumstances, I trust you. I trust you. Trust in a relationship means I accept you. I accept you. I accept you. Acceptance means you have not disappointed me. 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 Here's how it sounds in real life. Honey, I'm running late. That's okay. You just take your time. I'll be here waiting. Who stole my husband? Who stole my wife? Wow, what is that? All of a sudden you've created margin. Honey, I forgot to pay this bill. And instead of, aha, I knew you would forget to pay it. I've been waiting for you to forget to pay it because I get to be right again. It's, you know what? Hey, that's okay. I know, we'll figure it out. You've been busy. We got a lot going on. Margin. But I've disappointed. No, margin. You know what that is? That's come my way, move my way, come my way, move my way. There's a gap, but instead of using the gap to make a point and drive you further from me, I'm going to use this gap to leverage love, and I'm going to bring you closer to me. The more gaps there are, the more opportunities I have to say, but I love you anyway. I'm not giving up hope. I endure all things. I bear all things. I hope all things. I believe all things. You come my way. Now listen, I'm not saying you don't have difficult conversations. I'm not suggesting you don't confront the realities of the relationship. What I'm saying is this. After those conversations, when everybody's had their say, when everybody's tried to work it out, even when you're mad, the next time there's a gap, you still have a choice to make. And you will choose to believe the best or assume the worst. But relationships that last and relationships that thrive are relationships where people choose to believe the best. Let me tell you about your spouse's heart. Your spouse's heart, your fiance's heart, your partner's heart is just like your heart. Our hearts are drawn toward environments of acceptance. God made us that way. This is an opportunity to draw your partner's heart in your direction, just like you did when you first met. He may come home, she may come home, but if it is an environment of you don't measure up, their heart does not come home with them, no matter how bad they may want it to. If it's, I'm coming home and I know I'm going to be raked over the coals because I forgot to pay a bill or I forgot to pick up or I forgot whatever, you know what? If I know that I'm going to come into a conversation where what's communicated to me is you disappointed me again, you didn't measure up again, you didn't get it right again, try harder next time, I'm right. I may be there with my body, but I won't be there with my heart because my heart is drawn like your heart is drawn toward environments and relationships of acceptance. Every time there's a gap, you make a decision, will I accept or will I reject? Every single time. And couples that stay together forever have learned there are going to be gaps. The only question is, what am I going to put in the gap? And will I be willing to endure all things, to hope all things, believe all things, bear all things? Am I willing to place in that gap? I trust you until there is absolutely no other way for me to trust you. I'm hopeful there's a good reason and a good explanation. And I'm not going to reject you, and I'm not going to criticize you, and I'm not going to punish you, and I'm not going to chastise you until it's absolutely, we know beyond a shadow of a doubt, there's no excuse. And then we're going to have a tough conversation. But when that conversation is over, I choose to put trust right there in the middle. How do you do on that? How are you doing on that? Here's how Jesus summed the whole thing up. You have heard this part before. Luke 6:31, these are Jesus' words. Isn't this brilliant? Do to others as you would have them do to you. Most of us learned it this way, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Well, let me ask you this. How's that working for you? I mean, is this like bringing about positive change in your relationship? I know you're right every time, but it doesn't work for you, does it? What if you decided to do for him or do for her what you would like him or her to do for you? What if you discounted everything else in the whole Bible and all of religion and all of Christianity and decide, I'm just going to do this one thing in this one arena. I'm going to do for him and I'm going to do for her what I would like him or her to do for me. For some of you, this could be revolutionary. But I'm telling you, it begins right here. As soon as you get that phone call, as soon as you get home, and those trash cans are still on the street. As soon as you get home and you look through the mail, as soon as you get home and he promised but he didn't do it, and it begins right here. You make a choice. Some of you are going to make this choice on the way home today. Some of you are going to make this choice as soon as you get home. Some of you are going to have to make this choice tomorrow morning. And it's your choice. Am I going to come up with a generous explanation and believe the best? Or am I going to assume the worst? Happy couples have learned to believe the best, to fill the gap with trust every single time. Let me tell you why